13,000 years ago, they walked across a frozen land bridge into a new world.
Close your eyes and imagine. It's not a scene from a fantasy movie. It's our world, 13,000 years ago. The great groan of the planet echoes across the land as the last ice age, a relentless titan of cold that has gripped the earth for nearly 100,000 years, finally begins to loosen its hold. We are in North America, but it's a continent you wouldn't recognize. For millennia, it has been buried under a colossal sheet of ice, miles thick in places, a frozen desert stretching from the Arctic to what is now Ohio. But now, something is changing. The air, though still bitingly cold, carries a new message, a whisper of warmth. The sun, a distant, pale disk for so long, now seems to hang a little longer in the sky each day, its rays gaining strength, striking the ice with a power that feels almost magical. This is the dawn of the Holocene epoch, a new chapter in Earth's history, and we are witnessing its dramatic, breathtaking birth. The change isn't sudden, not an explosion, but a slow, colossal melt. Imagine the sound, a constant, thundering roar that becomes the background music of this era. It's the sound of unimaginable quantities of water being unleashed. Glaciers, those frozen rivers of ice that have carved and scraped the very bones of the continent, are in retreat. They are not simply melting away. They are calving, breaking apart with explosive force, sending city blocks. The edges of the great ice sheets are alive with movement, a chaotic, dynamic frontier between ice and open land. From beneath the retreating ice, a new world emerges, raw and unfinished. The land is scarred and scoured, a testament to the immense power of the glaciers that once covered it. The weight of the ice was so immense that it had pressed the crust of the earth down. And now, as it melts, the land begins to rebound, slowly rising, as if taking its first breath in an eternity. This process, called isostatic rebound, is happening on a scale that is hard to comprehend, lifting coastlines and creating new topographies over thousands of years. The landscape is a vast, open canvas, dominated by immense preglacial lakes. Lake Agassiz, for instance, a temporary lake formed from melt, was larger than all the Great Lakes combined, a shimmering inland sea in the heart of the continent. The meltwater doesn't just pool, it flows. Torrents of water, milky with glacial sediment, carve new paths through the naked earth, creating the river systems that will one day define North America. The Mississippi, the Missouri, the Ohio, these great arteries of the continent are being born in violent floods. Imagine a flood not just a few feet deep, but a wall of water hundreds of feet high, scouring canyons and depositing massive gravel bars in a matter of days. These megafloods reshape the landscape with terrifying speed, leaving behind a network of channels and fertile plains that will one day become the breadbasket of a nation. The very ground is being remade before our eyes. And what of the life in this emerging world? It's not a lush, green paradise just yet. As the ice pulls back, it reveals a vast tundra. Picture a sweeping, treeless expanse stretching to the horizon, carpeted with hardy mosses, lichens, sedges, and dwarf shrubs. It's a landscape of subtle color screens, browns and grays, punctuated by the bright, fleeting blooms of Arctic flowers in the short summer. The wind is a constant companion here, a cold, relentless force sweeping across the open plains, carrying the chill of the nearby ice sheets. It's a stark, beautiful, and profoundly challenging environment. Yet, life is persistent. It pushes forward, colonizing the newly exposed soil with incredible speed. Into these wild, dynamic, and unforgiving landscape steps a new player, humanity. Small bands of Paleo-Indians, our distant ancestors, are the first people to witness this transformation. They are not timid explorers. They are seasoned survivors, masters of the Arctic and subarctic environments, following the great herds of megafauna, woolly mammoths, giant bison, and mastodons that thrive on the tundra's vegetation. They push south through ice-free corridors that have opened up between the great ice sheets. These are not migrations in the modern sense. but a slow, generational expansion into a land that has never known a human footprint. Their world is one defined by stone, bone, and sinew. Their technology is deceptively simple but incredibly effective. They are masters of flint knapping, creating exquisitely crafted spear points like the famous Clovis points that are both deadly weapons and works of art. These tools are the key to their survival, allowing them to hunt the massive herbivores that are the cornerstone of their existence. A successful mammoth hunt is not just a meal, it's a monumental event providing food for weeks, hides for shelter and clothing, and bones and ivory for tools and ornaments. They live in small, mobile family groups, their lives dictated by the seasons and the movement of the animals they depend on. Imagine a hunting party, clad in warm furs, moving silently across the tundra. Their senses are sharp, attuned to every shift in the wind, every track in the soft earth. The air is so clear you can see for miles. In the distance, they spot their quarry. A herd of woolly mammoths. Their massive, shaggy forms, like moving hills against the backdrop of the distant, glittering ice. The hunt that follows is a ballet of courage, skill, and deep, intimate knowledge of the animal's behavior. It's a heistless encounter where a single mistake could be fatal. But for these first peoples, it is simply life. They are not just living in this world. They are a part of it, woven into its very fabric. Their arrival marks the beginning of the human story in the Americas, a story of adaptation, resilience, and ingenuity in the face of incredible environmental change. They are the pioneers of a new world, a world emerging from ice. As we stand here at the beginning of our journey, we see a land of immense scale and raw power, a world of freezing winds and giant beasts. But it is also a world of opportunity, a blank slate upon which the epic story of human civilization in the Americas will be written. This is just the first chapter. The world is changing, and humanity is changing with it. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this glimpse into our planet's deep past as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bells so you won't miss the next chapter, where we'll explore the incredible creatures of the Ice Age and the mysteries surrounding their extinction. See you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back. In our last chapter, we journeyed through a world untouched by human hands. But today, that all changes. We're winding the clock back tens of thousands of years to witness the arrival of the very first people in the Americas. These weren't explorers with maps and grand ambitions. They were small, resilient family groups of hunter-gatherers we now call Paleo-Indians. Their story isn't just history. It's one of the greatest adventure and survival epics ever told. Imagine a world in the grip of an ice age. Massive glaciers, miles thick, lock up a huge amount of the world's water. Sea levels are dramatically lower than they are today, hundreds of feet lower. In fact, this drop in sea level reveals something incredible. A massive land bridge, nearly 1,000 miles wide, connecting what we now know as Siberia and Alaska. This isn't some icy, narrow path. It's a vast, treeless plain called Beringia. For centuries, this was the prevailing theory of how people first got here. We call it the Clovis first model. The idea is that around 13,500 years ago, hunters followed massive herds of megafauna like the woolly mammoth, mastodon, and giant bison out of Asia, across the Bering Land Bridge, and into this new continent. As the great ice sheets began to melt, a corridor opened up, an ice-free passage running south through what is now Canada. These Clovis people, named after the distinctively shaped spear points they created, which were first found near Clovis, New Mexico, were seen as the pioneers, the ancestors of all subsequent indigenous peoples in the Americas. For a long time, the Clovis spear point was the smoking gun. Wherever archaeologists found these beautifully crafted tools, they knew they were on the trail of the first Americans. It was a near-tidy story. People walked across the land bridge, moved down the ice-free corridor, and spread rapidly across 2 continents, hunting the great beasts of the Pleistocene. It was the established truth for much of the 20th century. But as we all know, history loves a plot twist, and the story of the first Americans has some big ones. The first cracks in the Clovis first model began to appear with discoveries that just did unfit the timeline. Archaeologists started finding sites with evidence of human occupation that were undeniably older than any Clovis site. Take the Monteverde site in southern Chile, for example. It's a bombshell. Excavations there uncovered remarkably preserved artifacts, stone tools, animal hides, remains of huts, and even a child's footprint all dated to at least 14,500 years ago. That is a full 1,000 years before the Clovis people were supposed to have even started their journey south. Think about the implications of that. How could people be living at the very southern tip of South America before the ice-free corridor in the north was even fully open? It just didn't make sense. It meant they couldn't have taken that inland route. They must have had another way in. This is where our story gets even more exciting and introduces a second major theory: the coastal migration route. This theory suggests that the first people didn't walk through the middle of the continent. They paddled along its edge. Instead of being big game hunters on the plains, these early pioneers were maritime people, skilled at using boats. They would have hopped from island to island and along the coastline, from Northeast Asia, around the edge of Bering, and down the Pacific coast of North and South America. This kelp highway, as some scientists call it, would have been a rich environment. The coastal waters would be teeming with life seals, fish, shellfish, seabirds. It would have provided a reliable and abundant food source, much more so than the harsh interior of an ice-covered continent. These weren't necessarily epic, non-stop voyages. It was likely a gradual, generation-by-generation process of moving into new territory, following the resources. Of course, finding proof for this theory is incredibly difficult. Why? Because the coastline they would have traveled is now under hundreds of feet of water. The sea levels rose dramatically as the ice sheets melted, submerging the very campsites and villages that would prove this theory correct. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, when the haystack is at the bottom of the ocean. However, archaeologists are getting clever. They were looking for ancient caves and terraces on islands and coastal areas that are now above sea level but would have been on the shoreline back then. And they are finding tantalizing clues, like ancient tools and human remains, in places like the Channel Islands of California, that support this coastal travel idea. But wait, the plot thickens even more. What if people didn't just come across the Pacific? Recent, and still highly debated, theories propose even more radical ideas. One of them is the Solutrean hypothesis. This suggests that people from the Solutrean culture of ancient France and Spain might have traveled across the Atlantic Ocean during the Ice Age, following the edge of the sea ice and hunting seals and other marine mammals. They point to similarities between Solutrean spear points and the later Clovis points found in America. Now, this is a very controversial idea, and most archaeologists and geneticists are highly skeptical. The genetic evidence, in particular, overwhelmingly links Native Americans to populations in Asia, not Europe. The time gap and the technological challenges of an Ice Age Atlantic crossing are also massive hurdles for this theory, but it highlights how dynamic this field of study is, and how we're constantly questioning what we think we know. So, where does that leave us? We've moved from a single, simple story to a much more complex and fascinating picture. The current consensus is that the Clovis first model is no longer sufficient. It's clear that people were in the Americas before Clovis. It's highly likely that the coastal route was a primary, if not asterisk, the asterisk primary, an entry point. The inland, iced-free corridor route was probably also used, but perhaps later, by different groups. What this means is that there might not have been a single first group of people. Instead, we can imagine several waves of migration using different routes at different times. Some came by sea, some came by land. They adapted to incredibly diverse environments, from the icy north to the Amazon rainforest to the high Andes. These weren't just a handful of pioneers. They were a complex tapestry of cultures and peoples, each with their own unique story of arrival and settlement. The quest to find first footsteps is ongoing. Each new discovery, whether it's a 15,000-year-old tool in Texas or 23,000-year-old footprints in New Mexico, adds a new piece to this incredible puzzle. It pushes the timeline back further and further, challenging us to rethink the entire story of human history on these continents. It's a testament to the incredible perseverance and adaptability of our ancestors. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the past. The story is far from over, and that's what makes it so exciting. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through deep history. Today, we're stepping into a world that feels like pure fantasy, but was breathtakingly real. We're entering the late Pleistocene, the heart of the Ice Age, a land ruled by giants. This is Chapter 3. Following the giants, imagine a landscape unlike anything you've seen. Vast, windswept tundras, stretched to the horizon, dotted with spruce and pine forests. Glaciers, miles high, carve out valleys and feed roaring rivers. And moving across this epic stage are the true kings of this era. The megafauna. Look over there! A herd of woolly mammoths, their shaggy coats protecting them from the biting wind, their massive tusks curving towards the sky. Not far off, a solitary mastodon rips branches from a tree. It's stockier, more forest-adapted, build a contrast to its mammoth cousin. In the shadows of the woods, a giant ground sloth, as tall as a giraffe when it rears up, lazily strips leaves with its long tongue. And thundering across the plains, herds of ancient bison, larger and with longer horns than their modern descendants, kick up dust that hangs in the cold, clear air. This wasn't just a collection of animals. It was a living, breathing ecosystem, a world of immense power and scale. And walking quietly among these titans were the first peoples of the Americas, the Paleo-Indians. They weren't just surviving in this world. They were thriving. But how? How did a small band of humans coexist with creatures that could weigh over 10 tons? The answer lies in one word: knowledge. The Paleo-Indians were the ultimate students of the natural world. Their very survival depended on becoming masters of observation and pattern recognition. Following the great herds wasn't a random chase. It was a carefully orchestrated dance, a way of life built on an intimate understanding of these colossal beasts. They learned the rhythm of the seasons through the movements of the herds. They knew that when the mammoths began their long trek north in the spring, it signaled the thaw and the promise of new growth. They understood the ancient bison's calving seasons, knowing when and where to find vulnerable young. They weren't just hunters. They were ecologists, animal behaviorists, and master trackers. Every footprint in the mud told a story. The size and depth could reveal the age and health of the animal. The spacing of the tracks could indicate if the herd was calm or spooked. Droppings were a treasure trove of information, revealing the animal's diet, its recent location, and how long ago it had passed through. Even the wind carried clues. The scent of a herd on the breeze could guide a hunting party for days. This deep knowledge allowed them to predict, not just react. They knew the natural choke points in the landscape, the narrow canyons, the river crossings, the box valleys where a herd could be ambushed. These weren't random acts of violence. They were highly coordinated, strategic hunts requiring immense courage and cooperation. Think about the tools they used. The Clovis point, a masterfully crafted spear tip, is a testament to their ingenuity. Fluted at the base, it could be securely attached to a spear shaft, creating a powerful weapon capable of penetrating the thick hides of these giant animals. But the spear itself was only part of the equation. The real weapon was the group. A hunt was a community effort. Some members would be responsible for driving the animals towards the trap. Others, the most skilled hunters, would be positioned for the kill. They might use fire to create a barrier or noise to stampede the herd in a specific direction. It was a symphony of risk, strategy, and shared purpose. A successful mammoth hunt was more than just a meal. It was a monumental event that could sustain a group for weeks, even months, and nothing went to waste. This is a crucial point. The Paleo-Indians had a deep, profound respect for the animals they hunted. Every part of a mammoth, a mastodon, or a bison was utilized. The meat, rich in fat and protein, was the primary source of food, some eaten fresh, the rest preserved by drying or freezing in the permafrost. The massive hides were turned into shelter, clothing, and blankets, essential for surviving the brutal Ice Age winters. The bones, strong and durable, were transformed into a vast array of tools, needles for sewing, awls for punching holes, and even the framework for their dwellings. The tusks were carved into spear points, artistic objects, and items of personal adornment. Even the stomach and bladder could be used as water containers. The animal gave its life, and then return. It gave the people everything they needed to live. This relationship wasn't just one of predator and prey. It was a symbiosis. By following the herds, the Paleo-Indians had a mobile pantry, a walking hardware store, and a reliable guide to the rhythms of the land. Their lives were interwoven with the lives of these giants. The heartbeat of the herd was the heartbeat of the people. Imagine the stories told around the flickering fire at night, inside a tent made of mammoth hides. Stories of the great hunt, tales of cunning animals, and legends that explained the creation of the world and their place within it. These weren't just stories. They were teaching tools, passing down essential knowledge from one generation to the next. The elders, with their lifetimes of experience, were living libraries, holding the collective wisdom of the group. This way of life, following the giants, lasted for thousands of years. It was a successful and sustainable adaptation to a challenging but bountiful environment. The Paleo-Indians were not struggling to survive. They were masters of their world, living in a dynamic balance with the colossal forces of nature. But as we can know, the Ice Age did not last forever. The world began to warm. The great glaciers retreated, and the landscape started to change. And as the environment shifted, the world of the giants began to vanish. In our next chapter, we will explore the Great Extinction, the mysterious disappearance of the megafauna, and how the first peoples adapted to a world without the giants they had followed for millennia. It's a story of incredible resilience and the dawn of a new era. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey back in time. If you're captivated by this story of our deep past, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. We love reading your thoughts, so leave a comment below and let us know what fascinates you most about the Ice Age. Until next time, stay curious. Imagine, for a moment, stepping back in time. Not just hundreds, but thousands of years. The world is a canvas of untamed wilderness, dominated by colossal creatures like mammoths and giant sloths. And amidst this epic landscape, a new human culture emerges, one that would change the course of history in the Americas. This is the story of the Clovis people. Our journey begins in the 1920s, near a small town in New Mexico that would lend its name to one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Clovis. It was here, at a site now known as Blackwater Draw, that something extraordinary was unearthed. Mixed in with the fossilized bones of extinct megafauna were stone tools. But not just any tools. These were projectile points, crafted with a level of sophistication rarely seen before. They were elegant, deadly, and uniquely American. What made them so special? It was a feature we called the flute. Picture a long, slender channel or a groove running up from the base of the point. This wasn't just for decoration. This flute was a stroke of genius. It allowed the point to be securely hafted onto a wooden spear shaft, creating a weapon that was both incredibly strong and devastatingly effective. This design was so distinctive, so consistent across vast distances, that it became the calling card of an entire culture. We call them Clovis points. Finding these points alongside the remains of mammoths was the smoking gun archaeologists had been looking for. It was concrete proof that early humans in the Americas were not just scavengers, but skilled, big game hunters. They were capable of taking down animals many times their size. This discovery shattered previous theories about when people first arrived on the continent and what they were capable of. The Clovis first theory was born, suggesting that these people were the very first inhabitants of the New World, arriving around 13,500 years ago. Now, let's talk about the innovation itself. The Clovis point wasn't just a sharper rock. It was a technological breakthrough. The process of creating one, known as flint knapping, required immense skill. The napper had to select the right kind of stone, like chert or flint, and meticulously shape it using controlled strikes. The final, and riskiest step, was creating the flute. A single misplaced blow could shatter the entire point, wasting hours of work. The fact that so many of these perfect points had been found tells us that this was a highly refined and widely taught skill. This technology represents a massive leap forward. Think of it like the invention of the microchip in our time. It enabled a whole new way of life. With these advanced spears, the Clovis people became apex predators. They could hunt more efficiently, secure more food, and support larger family groups. This success allowed them to expand rapidly, and I mean rapidly. Within just a few hundred years, Clovis or Clovis-like artifacts appear all across North America, from Nova Scotia to Mexico. It was one of the fastest and most widespread cultural expansions in human history. Imagine a group of hunters, armed with these spears, tracking a herd of Columbian mammoths. These weren't just hunts. They were epic confrontations. It required strategy, communication, and immense courage. The Clovis point was the key to their success. Its design allowed for deep penetration, causing massive internal damage to their colossal prey. Some evidence even suggests they may have used otlotlos, or spear throwers, to launch their weapons with even greater force and accuracy, allowing them to strike from a safer distance. The Clovis toolkit wasn't limited to just spear points, though archaeologists have found a variety of other tools associated with their sites, including scrapers for processing hides, knives for butchering meat, and gravers for working bone and ivory. They were a versatile and adaptable people, making use of every part of the animals they hunted. They created bone needles for sewing clothing and potentially used mammoth ivory to craft tools and ornaments. Theirs was a culture built around the hunt, a life of constant movement, following the herds across a continent that was still shaking off the last vestiges of the Ice Age. So, who were these people? Where did they come from? For decades, the dominant theory was that they crossed a land bridge called Beringia, which connected Siberia and Alaska when sea levels were much lower. Chasing big game like mammoths and bison, they would have traveled down an ice-free corridor that opened up between the massive continental ice sheets, and from there, they spread out, populating 2 continents. The Clovis culture was seen as the founding population, the ancestors of all subsequent indigenous peoples in the Americas. However, the story of human arrival in the Americas is like a great detective novel, and new clues are always turning up. In recent decades, archaeologists have found evidence at sites like Monte Verde in Chile and the Paisley Caves in Oregon that predate Clovis, sometimes by 1,000 years or more. This has challenged the Clovis first model and opened up a fascinating debate. Were the Clovis people really the first, or were they just the first to develop this incredibly successful and widespread technology? Perhaps other groups arrived earlier, maybe traveling down the Pacific coast by boat. The picture is becoming more complex and much more interesting. It's possible that the Clovis phenomenon wasn't a single group of people, but rather the rapid spread of a powerful new idea, a new technology that was adopted and adapted by different groups already living in the Americas. The Clovis point became the killer app of the Pleistocene, giving its users a significant advantage. Regardless of whether they were the first or not, the impact of the Clovis culture is undeniable. They were masters of their environment, innovators who engineered a tool that allowed them to thrive in a challenging world. Their story is written in stone, in the elegant, fluted points they left behind. These artifacts are not just tools, they are messages from the deep past, a testament to human ingenuity, resilience, and the unquenchable drive to explore and adapt. The Clovis era was relatively brief, lasting only a few hundred years. Around 12,900 years ago, their distinctive points start to disappear from the archaeological record. At the same time, the megafauna they hunted also went extinct. What happened? Did they overhunt their prey? Did a dramatic climate change event, known as the Younger Dryas, alter their world too quickly? Or did they simply evolve, their technology changing into the diverse cultural traditions that followed? These are the questions that archaeologists are still working to answer today. The legacy of the Clovis people is profound. They represent a pivotal moment in human history, a breakthrough that set the stage for the next 13,000 years of human experience in the Americas. Their ingenuity reminds us that technology has always been a key driver of human success, and their mysterious disappearance reminds us that even the most successful cultures are vulnerable to change. Their story is a powerful chapter in the grand saga of our shared human journey. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the world of the Clovis people. Welcome, bike history buffs and curious minds. Today, We're stepping far back in time, not just thousands of years, but into the very mind and hands of an ancient artisan. We're going to explore the creation of one of the most iconic and ingenious tools of the Paleo-Indian period, the fluted point. So, find a quiet spot, and let's journey together into the Stone Age workshop. Imagine yourself in a landscape untouched by modern life. The air is clean and crisp. The only sounds are the rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the gentle flow of a nearby creek. Here, our ancient craftsperson begins their quest. The first, and perhaps most crucial, step is choosing the right material. Not just any rock will do. They are searching for stone that is both hard and predictable, something with a fine grain that breaks with a conchoidal fracture that is like glass. They might travel for days, following riverbeds or searching ancient quarries for the perfect piece of chert, flint, or obsidian. They feel the weight of each potential stone, tap it to hear its ring, and inspect it for hidden cracks or imperfections. The right stone feels alive in the hand, full of potential. It holds the promise of a perfect tool. Once the ideal stone, or core, is selected, the real artistry begins. Our artisan finds a comfortable spot, perhaps on a sun-warmed boulder. They have their toolkit ready. A larger, hard hammerstone, maybe a dense piece of quartzite, for the rough work, and a smaller, softer amer, like a piece of antler or dense bone, for the finer, more controlled strikes. This process is called knapping. The first stage is about roughing out the shape. This is called primary reduction. With practiced, forceful blows from the hard hammerstone, the knapper begins to strike the edges of the core. With each impact, a large flake of stone shears away. This isn't random smashing. Every strike is calculated. The angle of the blow, the exact point of impact, the amount of force all are precisely controlled to remove mass and slowly reveal the basic shape of the point hidden within the stone. It's a subtractive process, like a sculptor revealing a form from a block of marble. Chips and flakes fly, and the rough, blocky core gradually transforms into a flattened, leaf-shaped object known as a bife. It's thick and still crude, but the general outline of the future spear point is now visible. The napper constantly turns the bifus, examining the angles and ridges, planning the next several strikes in their mind. Now, the work becomes more delicate. The hard hammerstone is set aside, and the softer antler billet comes into play. This is secondary reduction, or thinning. The goal here is to thin the bifus and refine its shape. The blows are softer, more controlled. Instead of removing large, chunky flakes, the billet pushes off long, thin flakes that travel across the face of the stone. Each flake removed leaves behind a scar, and a skilled napper can create a beautiful, almost symmetrical pattern of scars across the surface. This is where you see true mastery. The napper might use a piece of leather on their leg to support the bifus, carefully positioning the edge to receive the blow. They're not just shaping the outline anymore. They're controlling the cross-section, making the point flatter, more aerodynamic, and preparing it for the final, most defining stage. The sound changes from a sharp crack to a softer, more resonant. After much patient work, the bifus is thin, symmetrical, and sharp. It's almost a finished point. But for the makers of the Clovis or Folsom points, the most difficult and ingenious step is yet to come. This is the step that gives the fluted point its name, the creation of the flute. The flute is a long, distinctive channel or groove that runs up from the base of the point, along one or both faces. This wasn't for decoration. It was a brilliant technological innovation. This channel allowed the point to be seated snugly into the split end of a wooden spear shaft, creating an incredibly strong and stable connection. It made the overall tip thinner without sacrificing strength at the edges. Fluting is the most nerve-wracking moment in the entire process. Hours of work can be undone in a split second. A single misplaced strike can shatter the point. To prepare, the napper carefully grinds the base of the point, creating a strong, dull platform to strike. This platform must be perfectly angled. They might use a chest crucia long tool they can press against their chest to apply immense focused pressure. Or they might use a precise indirect percussion technique, placing a punch made of antler on the platform and striking the punch with a billet. Imagine the focus. Our artisan takes a deep breath. All the sounds of the world fade away. There is only the point, the tool, and the intention. They apply pressure, or they position the punch. Then, a single, sharp, perfectly delivered strike. If all goes well, a long channel flake detaches from the base and travels up the face of the point, creating the signature flute, a wave of relief. They might then turn the point over and repeat the process on the other side. The result is a masterpiece of Stone Age engineering. With the flute successfully created, the final step is the finishing touch. The napper uses an even finer tool, perhaps the tip of an antler tine, for pressure flaking. Instead of striking, they now press firmly on the edges of the point, popping off tiny, precise flakes. This sharpens the edges to a razor-like finish and perfects the final shape, the graceful curve of the blade, the sharp tip, the carefully formed ears at the base. They also grind the edges near the base, dulling them slightly so they woe and cut through the sinew lashings that will bind the point to the spear shaft. And there it is, held in the palm of a hand that is now covered in fine stone dust, is the finished fluted point. It's more than a tool. It's a testament to incredible skill, patience, and knowledge passed down through generations. It's a perfect union of form and function, a deadly and beautiful object ready to be hafted to a spear and take its place in the great mammoth hunts of the Ice Age. The entire process, from a rough stone to this finished work of art, is a story of human ingenuity at its finest. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. I hope it gave you a new appreciation for the skill of our ancient ancestors. If you enjoyed this, please give this video a like, and do you want forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you do won't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the deep past. Today, we're stepping into Chapter 6, the Mammoth Hunters' Camp. Let's travel back more than 12,000 years, to the end of the last Ice Age, and visit a world that is both alien and strikingly familiar. Imagine standing on a gentle rise, overlooking a wide, braided river. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. Below you, nestled in a clearing protected by a grove of ancient spruce trees, is a Paleo-Indian camp. It's not a city, not even a village, but a vibrant, living community. A temporary home for a band of nomadic hunters. This is a snapshot of life in the Pleistocene, a world dominated by and the resourceful humans who thrived alongside them. The first thing you'd notice is the smoke. Several fires flicker and dance, their plumes rising lazily into the vast, open sky. Fire is the heart of this camp. It provides warmth against the lingering chill of the Ice Age, light against the encroaching darkness, and a way to cook the day's hunt. It's a beacon of safety in a wild, untamed land. Around these hearths, life unfolds in a rhythm dictated by the seasons and the movement of the great herds. Look closer. The ground around the fires is littered with the evidence of daily life. Thousands of stone flakes, sharp as razors, are scattered across the earth. These are the byproducts of tool-making, a craft essential for survival. You can see a hunter sitting cross-legged, a large core of chert held firmly in one hand and a hammerstone of antler in the other. With practiced, precise strikes, he detaches a long, thin blade. This isn't random smashing, it's a highly skilled art. Each blow is calculated, each flake a potential spear point, knife, or scraper. He's probably repairing the tools that were damaged during the last mammoth hunt, or perhaps preparing for the next one. The most prized of these are the fluted points, beautiful and deadly, a hallmark of these early American cultures. Their creation is a secret passed down through generations, a testament to human ingenuity. Nearby, another group of men are working on their spears. The shafts, made from straight, strong saplings, are being smoothed with abrasive sandstone. They're attaching the newly made stone points with sinew and a strong adhesive made from tree resin. These aren't just tools, they're lifelines. Their effectiveness is the difference between a successful hunt and a hungry winter. There's a quiet focus in their work, a shared understanding of the importance of what they're doing. Now, Shift your gaze to where the women are gathered. They are just as busy, their tasks equally vital to the group's survival. One woman is scraping a large hide, perhaps from a bison or a giant stag stretched, taut on a wooden frame. Using a sharpened stone scraper, she methodically removes the last bits of flesh and fat. It's strenuous, repetitive work, but essential. These hides will become clothing to protect against the biting winds, blankets for warmth during the cold nights, and coverings for their simple, conical shelters, likely made from a framework of mammoth tusks or wooden poles. Another woman is using a bone awl to punch holes along the edge of a finished piece of leather, preparing to sew. Her thread is a tough strand of sinew, her needle a delicate, carved piece of bone. The clothing they create is functional, but you might also see decorative touches of fringe, or perhaps patterns etched into the hide. These people had an aesthetic sense, a desire for beauty even in this harsh environment. They are preparing for the coming cold, ensuring their families are warm and protected. The smell of wood smoke mixes with the earthy scent of tanned leather. And where are the children? They are everywhere, a constant, energetic presence in the camp. They aren't in a school, but the entire camp is their classroom. A group of younger children are near the riverbank, their laughter echoing as they skip smooth, flat stones across the water's surface. They are learning about the river, its currents, and the fish that swim within it. An older boy watches his father napping stone, mimicking the motions with a piece of soft rock. He's not yet strong enough to work the hard chert, but he is absorbing the technique, learning through observation. A young girl sits beside her mother, her small hands trying to stitch to small scraps of leather together. Her stitches are clumsy, but she is learning the skills she will need as an adult. They learn by watching, by listening to the stories of the elders, and by participating in the daily activities of the camp. Their play is practice for the life ahead of them. You might see an elder, a man or a woman, whose face is a roadmap of a long life, sitting by the central fire. They are the keepers of knowledge, the living libraries of the band. They tell stories of the great hunts, of the creation of the world, of the spirits that inhabit the rivers and mountains. They teach the children the names of the plants, which ones are for medicine and which are for food. Their wisdom guides the group, helping them navigate the challenges of their world. There is a deep respect for these elders. Their experience is the group's most valuable asset. The camp is a symphony of quiet, purposeful activity. There's a sense of calm, cooperation, of everyone knowing their role and contributing to the well-being of the whole. This isn't a struggle for mere survival. It's a thriving, successful way of life. They have everything they need. Food from the hunt, water from the river, materials for tools and shelter from the land around them, and the strength of their community. As the sun begins to dip towards the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the activity in the camp shifts. The tool makers put away their work. The hunters gather to discuss the tracks they found earlier in the day, planning their strategy for the coming morning. The smell of roasting meat now fills the air as chunks of bison or elk sizzle over the hot coals. The families gather around their hearths. The fires glow brighter as darkness falls, casting long, dancing shadows. The children, tired from a day of play and learning, lean against their parents. This is a time for sharing food, for reinforcing social bonds, and for storytelling. An elder begins a tale, his voice a low, rhythmic chant. He speaks of the great mammoth, a creature of immense power and spirit, and of the courage of the hunters who dare to face it. The children listen, their eyes wide with awe, the story becoming a part of their memory, a part of who they are. This camp, with its flickering fires, scattered stone flakes, and the quiet hum of human life, is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of our ancestors. They were not primitive savages, but intelligent, resourceful people with a deep connection to their environment and a rich social and cultural life. They were pioneers, exploring a new continent and creating a way of life that would endure for thousands of years. They were the first Americans, and this was their world. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. I hope it gave you a new perspective on these incredible people. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more chapters from our ancient history. We have so much more to explore together. See you in the next video. The sun bleeds pale gold across the frozen plains, a new day born into a world of ice and silence. But for us, the silence is a canvas, and soon we will paint upon it a story of survival. Today, we hunt the great ones. Today, we hunt the mammoth. 4 weeks, we have watched them. Our scouts, ghosts on the horizon, have tracked the herd's slow, deliberate journey. They've learned their rhythms, the way the matriarch leads them to the sheltered valleys, the way the young ones play under her watchful eye. This is not a battle of rage, but a dance of necessity. The great ones will give us life meat to fill our bellies, hides to shield us from the biting wind, bones to build our homes and shape our tools. Their spirit will become part of our own. Now, gathered in the flickering firelight of the cave, the elders speak. Their voices are low, raspy with age and wisdom. The plan is ancient, passed down through generations. It is a map etched, not on stone, but in our memories. They remind us of the wind, our greatest ally and most treacherous foe. We must approach from downwind, our scent swallowed by the breeze. They remind us of the earth itself, how we will use the narrow ravine to our advantage, guiding the chosen one away from the safety of its herd. We are not many, but we are one. Each hunter knows their role. The fastest among us will form the first wave. Their purpose, not to strike, but to startle, to create the confusion we need. They carry no heavy spears, only the shouts in their chests and the courage in their hearts. They are the river's current, guiding the great beasts toward our trap. I look at my spear, the point a shard of flint, napped with a skill passed from my father's father. It is an extension of my arm, of my will. The shaft is smooth ash, balanced and strong. Others carry the outlet low. It is a wondrous tool, a gift from our ancestors that gives our throw the power of a giant. With it, a spear can fly farther and strike harder than any arm could manage alone. It turns a hunter into a force of nature. We paint our faces with ochre and charcoal. These are not masks to hide behind, but symbols of our intent. The red earth for the blood that will be spilled and the life it will give. The black charcoal for the shadows we must become, unseen and unheard. We are a part of this land, and we ask its permission to do what we must. We offer a silent prayer to the spirits of the plains, to the spirit of the sky, and to the great spirit of the mammoth itself. We ask for its strength, and we promise to honor its sacrifice. The time comes, we move out from the shelter of the caves. The cold air a sharp sting in our lungs. The world is hushed, holding its breath. Even the wind seems to wait. The only sound is the soft crunch of our fur-wrapped feet on the snow and the steady, thumping beat of our own hearts. It is a drumbeat of anticipation, of fear, of profound respect. We crawl on our bellies through the low scrub, the frozen ground unforgiving. Ahead, through the wisps of morning mist, we see them, mountains of fur and bone, their breath pluming in the frigid air. They are magnificent, ancient beings, masters of this icy world. Our target is a lone male, powerful but separated from the main group by a few hundred paces east to one. The signet is given a bird call, so perfectly mimicked it goes unnoticed by the herd. The flankers, the fast runners, rise from the snow-like spirits and begin their charge. Their shouts, tearing through the quiet. Panic ripples through the herd. The great beasts trumpet, a sound that shakes the very ground beneath us. But the chaos is controlled, a storm of our own making. The lone bull, confused and startled, turns away from the noise, just as we planned. He runs toward the ravine, toward the rest of us. The trap is sprung. Now, the real hunt begins. We rise, a line of hunters against the endless white. The quiet is over. We close in, our movements coordinated, a pack of wolves working as one. The utlots are raised with a whip-like crack. The first spears fly, arcing through the air. They are not aimed to kill, not yet. They strike the mammoth's thick, shaggy flanks, goading it, tiring it. It roars in frustration and pain, a sound of thunder and fury. It is a titan, and we are but small, fleeting creatures before it. But we have a plan. It thrashes its massive head, its tusks like twin sides, carving the air. We are a nimble dancing away from its charges, always circling, always pressing. Another volley of spears from the outlaws. One finds its mark deep in the shoulder muscle. The beast stumbles, its powerful rhythm broken for just a moment. That is our chance. Those of us with the heavy thrusting spears move in. This is the moment of ultimate courage. The moment you look a god in the eye. We must get close, under the sweep of those deadly tusks. The air is thick with the smell of musk and ferrets and hours. I see an opening. I surge forward, my heart a hammer against my ribs. I plant my feet, lean in with all my weight, and drive my spear into its side, aiming for the space between the ribs, for the life within. The impact jolts through my entire body. The mammoth bellows, a sound of pure agony that echoes across the plains. It feels like the mountain itself is crying out. I pulled back, leaving the spear in its side. Others follow, striking with precision and desperate strength. We are not fighting an enemy. We are completing a sacred cycle, slowly, agonizingly. The great beast begins to falter. Its powerful legs tremble. Its roars soften too deep, shuddering groans. It sinks to its knees, its great head bowing to the earth. The hunt is over. Silence falls once more, heavier than before. We stand back, our chests heaving, our bodies aching. We do not cheer. We watch in reverent quiet as the life fades from its eyes. The elder approaches and places a hand on its massive, still warm flank. He speaks to its spirit, thanking it for its gift, promising that no part of it will be wasted, promising that its strength will now feed our children, that its warmth will protect our families. We have taken a great life, so that our small lives may continue. In T's frozen, unforgiving world, this is the deepest truth we know. This is the great hunt. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the distant past. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more tales from the dawn of humanity. Your support allows us to keep these ancient stories alive. Thank you for watching. The hunt is over. A life has been taken, but this is not an ending. It's a transition. The true work, the sacred work, begins now. This is where survival meets spirit, where the practical becomes profound. As the great mammoth lies still, a hush falls over the hunting party. There's no boisterous celebration, no shouts of victory. Instead, there's a deep, collective breath of respect. The lead hunter approaches, placing a hand on the immense, furry flank. A silent prayer is offered, a whispered thanks to the spirit of the mammoth for its sacrifice. This isn't just an animal. It's a gift from the land, a provider that will sustain the clan through the biting cold and long nights. This moment of gratitude is the first and most crucial step. It acknowledges the bond between hunter and hunted, the cyclical nature of life and death that governs our world. Then, the clan works as one, a symphony of purpose-driven motion. The sharpest flint blades, tools honed over generations, are brought forth. The process of butchering is an art form, a map of anatomy, passed down from elder to child. The first cut is precise, opening the thick hide. It's a tough, laborious task, requiring immense strength and skill. The hide, once removed, is immense. It will be scraped, cured, and stitched together to form the walls of our shelters, a warm barrier against the relentless wind and snow. It will become clothing, blankets, and strong carrying pouches. Nothing is wasted. The air fills with the earthy scent of the animal as the butchering continues. The great slabs of rich, red meat are carved away with care. The choicest cuts, the tenderloin and the fat-rich belly, are set aside. Some will be cooked immediately over the fire for a communal feast, a meal that replenishes the hunter's strength and celebrates the successful hunt. It's a moment of shared joy and relief, the taste of survival itself. But most of the meat is destined for preservation. It will be sliced into thin strips and hung on racks to be smoked or dried in the cold, crisp air. This jerky will be our lifeline in the lean months to come, a portable, long-lasting source of energy. As the butchers work deeper, they reach the organs. The heart, liver, and kidneys are nutrient-dense treasures, eaten quickly to absorb their potent vitality. The stomach and intestines are carefully cleaned. The stomach can become a watertight container, a natural canteen for carrying precious water. The intestines, once cleaned and dried, can be twisted into strong cordage or used as casings for preserving minced meat and fat. Now we come to the skeleton, the very frame of this magnificent creature. The massive ribs, long and curved, are perfect structural supports. They will become the framework for our huts, arched overhead like the branches of a great tree, creating a sturdy, domed shelter when covered with the mammoth's own hide. It is as if the mammoth continues to protect the clan, even after its life has passed. The smaller bones don't escape our notice. They are the raw material for 1,000 different tools and artifacts. Leg bones are shattered to get to the rich, fatty marrow inside a high-energy food that is a delicacy. The remaining fragments are shaped and sharpened into awls for sewing, needles for fine stitching, and scrapers for cleaning hides. They become fish hooks, spear points, and even beads for adornment. Every piece has a purpose. And then there are the tusks. These glorious, curving arcs of ivory are the mammoth's crown. They are objects of immense power and beauty. Carving them is a specialized skill, reserved for the most patient and artistic members of the clan. The ivory is worked slowly, etched with patterns that tell the story of the hunt, the symbols of our clan, and the spirits of the world around us. These carvings are not mere decorations. They are history books, spiritual conduits, and items of great ceremonial importance. Sections of tusk are shaped into spear throwers, adding leverage and power to our hunters' arms. Smaller pieces become sacred figurines, pendants worn for protection, or handles for our most valued tools. The tusks connect us to the spirit of the mammoth, a tangible link to its strength and majesty. Even the sinew, the strong tendons that run along the spine and legs, is carefully harvested. When dried, it can be separated into incredibly strong, fine threads. This is what we use to stitch our clothing, fletch our arrows, and bind our spear points to their shafts. It is the thread that literally holds our world together. The hair, coarse and long, is gathered and woven into rope or used as insulation, stuffed into the seams of our shelters and clothing to keep the cold at bay. When the process is complete, almost nothing of the great animal remains on the snow-covered ground. Every single part has been given a new life, a new purpose within the clan. The mammoth is now our home, our clothes, our tools, our food, and our art. This transformation is the ultimate act of respect. We don't just take, we receive. And in receiving, we honor the gift by using it completely. The hunt is more than a quest for food. It's a deep, spiritual contract with the world. It teaches us humility, reminding us of our place in the great web of life. It teaches us gratitude for the life that sustains ours. And it teaches us ingenuity, the ability to see the potential in every bone, every scrap of hide. In this ceremony of utilization, the mammoth is not gone. It is reborn. It lives on in the warmth of our hearth, in the strength of our tools, and in the spirit of our people. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this story meaningful, please like, subscribe, and follow our channel for more tales from our world. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through human history. Today, we're diving deep into the Ice Age, but we're not just talking about mammoths and glaciers. We're reopening up the prehistoric toolbox to reveal the incredible technology that allowed our ancestors to not just survive, but thrive in one of the planet's most challenging eras. Forget the cartoon image of a club-wielding caveman. The reality is far more sophisticated. These were brilliant engineers, innovators, and survivors. So, let's start with the cornerstone of their toolkit. Stone, but not just any rock. They were masters of flint knapping, the art of shaping stone. Imagine you're holding a core of flint. With a carefully aimed strike from a hammerstone, you could flake off a razor-sharp piece. This wasn't random smashing. It was a skill passed down through generations, requiring immense precision and a deep understanding of the material. Each strike had a purpose. These sharp flakes became the foundation for everything else. They were the disposable razor blades of the Paleolithic, sharp enough to butcher a giant bison or whittle a wooden spear. From these basic flakes, they created a whole range of specialized tools. Let's talk about the scraper. It might not sound glamorous, but this tool was essential for survival. After a hunt, the hide of an animal was a priceless resource, but it was useless, raw. Using a stone scraper, with its rounded, sturdy edge, they would meticulously scrape away fat and tissue. This was the first, crucial step in tanning the hide to create warm clothing, sturdy shelters, and even containers. It was a repetitive, demanding job, but without it, freezing temperatures would have been a death sentence. Next up, we have the awl. Think of it as the Ice Age needle. Crafted from a sharp point of bone, antler, or stone, the awl was used to punch small, precise holes in those prepared hides. Why? So you could thread sinew or plant fibers through them, stitching pieces of leather together. This is how they created tailored clothing. We're not talking about just draping a fur over your shoulders. We're talking about fitted tunics, leggings, and even parkas with hoods, all expertly stitched to keep the biting wind out. The awl is proof of their advanced understanding of insulation and garment construction. And of course, what's a toolkit without a good knife? Ice Age knives were incredibly varied. Some were long, elegant blades made from a single, perfect flake of flint, perhaps used for more delicate tasks or ceremonies. Others were composite tools, where smaller, sharp stone inserts, called were set into a handle of wood or bone using natural adhesives like birch bark tar. This was genius. If one part of the blade broke, you didn't have to throw the whole tool away. You just replaced the broken microlith. It was a modular, efficient, and sustainable system that saved time and precious resources. These tools weren't just for processing animals. They were instrumental in creating other tools. Woodworking was a major industry. Stone adzes and axes, with their heavy, polished heads, could fell trees and shape wood. From teakwood, they crafted spear shafts, tent poles, and even carved intricate figures. Bone and antler were also key materials. They were shaped into spear points, harpoons with barbs that would stick in fast-moving prey, and even finely crafted items like sewing needles with tiny, drilled eyes. The level of detail and craftsmanship is astonishing. Now, let's talk about the ultimate survival technology. Fire. The ability to control fire changed everything. It provided warmth against the bitter cold, light in the long, dark nights, and a way to cook food, which unlocked more nutrients and killed dangerous pathogens. It also kept predators at bay. But how did they make it? They didn't just wait for a lightning strike. One common method was the hand drill. This involved rapidly spinning a wooden spindle against a fireboard, creating friction and heat. Eventually, a glowing ember would form in the wood dust, which could then be transferred to a bundle of dry tinder, like grass or fungus, and gently blown into flame. Another method was striking a piece of flint against a rock rich in iron pyrite. This would create a hot spark, which, if aimed correctly at tinder, could also start a fire. Mastering this skill was non-negotiable. It was the difference between life and death. So, when we picture our Ice Age ancestors, let's look past the cliches, see them as they were: intelligent, resourceful, and technically skilled people. Their toolkit was a library of accumulated knowledge, a testament to their ability to observe, experiment, and innovate. Every scraper, every flickering flame tells a story of human ingenuity in the face of incredible adversity. They weren't just surviving. They were building the very foundations of the world we live in today. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Ice Age toolkit. It's truly amazing what we can learn from our ancestors. If you found this as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next chapter in human history. Let me know in the comments which tool you think was the most. Until next time, stay curious. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey into the deep past. Last time, we discussed the arrival of the first peoples in North America. Today, in Chapter 10, we're going across the continent, tracking their incredible expansion and adaptation into every corner of this vast land. So, buckle up, because we're about to cover thousands of miles and thousands of years in just a few minutes. Imagine stepping into a world untouched by modern civilization. This was the reality for the Paleo-Indians, armed with incredible resilience and ingenious technology. They didn't just survive, they thrived, spreading with astonishing speed. Their journey wasn't a single, straight line, but a complex web of movement, adaptation, and discovery. Let's start on the Great Plains. This was Mammoth country, and the early hunters were masters of this domain. Oh, do we know? We look to sites like Blackwater Draw in New Mexico. This place is a treasure trove. Discovered in the 1930s, it provided the first undeniable evidence of humans. The Clovis people, hunting now extinct megafauna like mammoths and ancient bison. At Blackwater Draw, archaeologists found the distinctive Clovis spear points directly associated with the bones of these giant animals. It painted a vivid picture. Highly organized groups, capable of taking down prey many times their size. This wasn't just about food. It was a way of life, a culture built around the great herds of the plains. From the plains, groups radiated outwards. Let's head south, into the American Southwest and what is now Texas. Here, we find the Galt site. What makes Galt so special is the sheer density of artifacts. We're talking millions of stone tools. This wasn't just a temporary hunting camp. It was a major hub, a workshop of sorts, occupied for generations. The abundance of tools, made from high-quality local chert, tells us that people were settling in, building a more permanent existence. They weren't just passing through. The evidence at Galt suggests a diverse diet, moving beyond big game hunting to include smaller animals, plants, and fish. This shows an amazing ability to adapt their strategies to a different environment, one that was richer in a variety of resources. Now, let's journey thousands of miles northeast to the Great Lakes region. As the massive ice sheets that once covered this area retreated, they left behind a dramatically different landscape, a mosaic of newly formed lakes, rivers, and burgeoning forests. The people who moved into this region were pioneers in the truest sense. They adapted their toolkits to hunt woodland animals like caribou and deer and learned to fish the plentiful waters. Their spear points, while related to the earlier Clovis style, began to change, becoming more refined and suited for a forest environment. They were laying the groundwork for the rich and diverse cultures that would later flourish in the eastern woodlands. Speaking of the East, our final stop is the Atlantic coast. And for these, we have to visit one of the most important and debated archaeological sites in the Americas, the Meadowcroft rock shelter in Pennsylvania. Tucked under a rock overhang, this site contains one of the longest and most continuous records of human occupation in North America. Excavations led by James Adovasio uncovered meticulously stratified layers of history. Deep within these layers, artifacts were found that some archaeologists date to over 16,000 years ago, potentially even before the Clovis culture. Now, this pre-Clovis dating is a hot topic of debate in archaeology. But what's undeniable about Meadowcroft is the incredible story it tells of continuous human presence. For millennia, people used this shelter. We see their campfires, their tools for processing plants and hunting animals like deer, and evidence of a broad, flexible diet. Meadowcroft shows us that people reached the eastern edge of the continent very early on, adapting to the rich deciduous forests long before the pyramids were a glimmer in anyone's eye. It challenges our timelines and forces us to reconsider the complexity of this great migration. So, what does this all mean? From the mammoth hunters of Blackwater Draw in the plains to the industrious toolmakers at Galt in the south, to the forest pioneers around the Great Lakes and the ancient inhabitants of Meadowcroft in the east, we see a story of incredible human adaptability. In just a few thousand years, a relatively short span in the grand scheme of things, humans populated an entire continent. They faced unfamiliar climates, hunted strange new animals, and learned the secrets of countless new plants. This wasn't a simple conquest. It was a dance of adaptation. Each new environment presented a unique set of challenges and opportunities. And with each step, these early peoples developed new technologies, new strategies, and new ways of seeing the world. They were the original explorers, the true pioneers of America. Their legacy isn't written in books, but in the stone tools, ancient and faint traces they left behind for us to find, scattered across the continent. It's a profound reminder of the resilience and ingenuity that is woven into the very fabric of human history. Thank you so much for joining me on this continental trek through time. The story of humanity is vast and full of wonders, and we've only just scratched the surface. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue exploring the past with us, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We love hearing from you, so leave your questions and thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Imagine stepping back in time, not just by a few centuries, but by thousands of years. The air is crisp, clean, and carries a chill that bites deep. This isn't the North America we know today. This is a world shaped by ice, a land of giants, a place of stark, breathtaking beauty. Welcome to the world of the first peoples, a world they knew intimately. This is Chapter 11, The World They Knew. Let's close our eyes for a moment and picture the landscape. Vast, dark forests of spruce and fir stretch for miles, their needles thick and resilient against the cold. The air here is heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. Sunlight struggles to pierce the dense canopy, dappling the forest floor in a perpetual twilight. Moss carpets the ground like a thick, green velvet, muffling your footsteps. This is a silent, watchful place, home to caribou and the elusive, giant, short-faced bear. Every snapped twig, every rustle of leaves could mean the difference between being the hunter and the hunt. The forest was both a sanctuary and a labyrinth, providing wood for fire, shelter from the biting winds, and the game that sustained life. Now, emerge from the shadows of the forest onto the endless expanse of the grasslands. This is the Mammoth Steppe, a vast, windswept sea of hardy grasses, sedges, and low-lying shrubs that stretches to the horizon. It's a world painted in shades of ochre, brown, and pale green, dotted with colorful wildflowers in the brief, intense summer. Here, the sky is immense, a brilliant blue dome arching over the plains. There are no trees to block the view, offering a sense of both profound freedom and vulnerability. You can see 4 miles, which is crucial because this is the kingdom of the megafauna. Herds of woolly mammoths, their great, curved tusks sweeping the ground, move like walking mountains across the plains. Their deep, rumbling calls echo across the landscape. Bison, larger and shaggier than their modern cousins, graze in massive herds, their hooves thundering on the hard-packed earth. Packs of dire wolves, larger and more powerful than any wolf today, trot along the edges, their eyes scanning for any sign of weakness. And then there are the horses, wild and untamed, their coats thick against the cold, their manes flying in the constant wind. This isn't a quiet place. It's a symphony of life. The lowing of bison, the trumpeting of mammoths, the howl of the wind, and the cry of predatory birds circling high above. The lifeblood of this world, though often frozen, is its rivers. In the summer, they are torrents of icy meltwater, carving paths through the land. Their banks a riot of green. They are highways for migrating animals and vital fishing spots for the people who followed them. But for much of the year, these rivers are transformed into solid highways of ice. They lie still and silent, their surfaces gleaming under the pale winter sun or the shimmering light of the aurora borealis. Crossing them is a calculated risk, but they also provide a direct path through an otherwise difficult terrain. The sound of the ice groaning and cracking under the pressure is a constant reminder of the immense power of the cold. Along these frozen banks, you might find the tracks of a saber-toothed cat, its massive paws leaving deep impressions in the snow as it stalks its prey. The seasons in this Ice Age world were dramatic and extreme. Summer was a brief, frantic burst of life. The sun, though perhaps not as warm as we used to, hung in the sky for long hours, fueling a rapid growth of plants. The world exploded in green, and the air buzzed with insects. Animals, and the people who depended on them, feasted, building up fat reserves for the long, hard months ahead. It was a time of abundance, of movement, and of preparation. But winter always returned. It wasn't just a season. It was a dominant force, a relentless siege. The days grew short, The sun, a weak, distant disk in the sky. Temperatures plummeted, and snow, fine and dry, blanketed everything in a pristine, white shroud. The world became quieter, more subdued. The wind howled across the frozen plains, sculpting the snow into massive drifts. Survival became a daily challenge. Finding shelter, keeping the fire alive, and locating food under the deep snow required incredible knowledge, skill, and resilience. The stars at night in the clear, frigid air would have been astonishingly bright, a canopy of glittering diamonds in a sky untouched by modern light. This wasn't an empty world. It was a dynamic, living, breathing place. It was a world of towering ice sheets in the distance, their sheer cliffs of blue and white gleaming on the horizon. It was a world of constant sound, the whisper of wind through spruce needles, the thunder of 1,000 hooves, the crack of a glacier calving into a lake, and the distant, lonely howl of a wolf. For the first people to call this land home, every sound, every sight, every shift in the wind held meaning. It was a world that demanded respect, a world of immense danger, and a world of profound, raw beauty. This was the stage upon which the first chapter of human history in the Americas was written. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's truly humbling to imagine the world our ancestors inhabited. If you enjoyed this exploration of the Ice Age environment, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more chapters from our deep past. Have you ever wondered what life was like for our earliest ancestors? We often picture them as solitary figures, battling mammoths and braving the elements alone. But the truth is far more intimate and, frankly, far more human. The real story isn't just about survival. It's about the birth of society, the dawn of family, and the power of community. Welcome to the world of the hunter-gatherer families, where the bonds of kinship were the ultimate survival tool. Let's journey back in time, tens of thousands of years ago. Forget the concrete jungles of today and imagine a world painted with endless savannas, dense forests, and winding rivers. This was the stage where our human story truly began. At the heart of it all wasn't a lone warrior, but a group, a family, a clan. These early humans understood a fundamental truth that we sometimes forget. We are stronger together. Imagine a typical day, as dawn breaks casting a soft, golden light over the landscape. The camp slowly stirs. This isn't just a random collection of people. It's a multi-generational family. Grandparents, parents, children, aunts, uncles, cousins, living and working together. The division of labor wasn't a rigid corporate structure. It was an organic, fluid system born of necessity and mutual respect. Some of the stronger, more experienced adults would prepare for the hunt. This was a high-stakes endeavor, requiring immense skill, patience, and coordination. They weren't just hunting for themselves, they were hunting for everyone. They carried the weight of their family's hunger on their shoulders. Meanwhile, back at the camp, another world of activity was buzzing. This was the domain of gathering, arguably the more reliable source of food. Women, often with children in tow, would venture out to collect fruits, nuts, roots, and edible plants. They were expert botanists, with an encyclopedic knowledge of the local flora passed down through generations. They knew which berries were sweet, which roots were nourishing, and which leaves could be used for medicine. The children weren't just passively watching, they were learning. They'd mimic their elders, tasting, touching, and memorizing. This was their school, and nature was their classroom. Every gathered handful of berries was a lesson in botany, ecology, and survival. The success of these groups wasn't just about finding food. It was about sharing it. When the hunters returned, whether with a large kill or empty-handed, the day's resources were pooled. The gathered plants and the hunted meat were brought to the center of the camp to be shared amongst everyone. This act of sharing was the social glue that held the group together. It wasn't about what's mine is mine. It was about what's ours is ours. This ensured that everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, had a share. It built trust, fostered cooperation, and created a powerful safety net. If one person had a bad day, the group ensured they wouldn't go hungry. As the sun would set, casting long shadows across the land, the community would gather around the one thing that truly transformed human existence: The fire, the hearth, was more than just a source of warmth and a way to cook food. It was the social heart of the clan. It was the television, the internet, and the town square all rolled into one. Here, around the flickering flames, the day's events were recounted. The hunters would describe the chase, the close calls, the moment of triumph. The gatherers would share their discoveries, a new patch of berries, a hidden spring. Laughter would echo into the night as jokes and personal stories were exchanged. This was where culture was born. The elders, the living libraries of the group, would begin to speak. Their voices, weathered by time, would weave stories of the great spirits of the land, the creation of the world, and the heroic deeds of ancestors. These weren't just bedtime stories. They were a guide to life. They contained the group's collective wisdom, their moral code, their history, and their identity. Myths explained the changing seasons, the behavior of animals, and the mysteries of the cosmos. Legends of a great hunter from generations past would inspire the young, teaching them the values of courage, perseverance, and generosity. Think about the transmission of skills. A father wouldn't hand his son a textbook on how to nap flint into a spearhead. He'd sit with him by the fire, stone in hand, and demonstrate the precise angle and force needed for each strike. A mother would show her daughter how to weave a basket from river reeds, her fingers moving in a dance perfected over a lifetime. These were intimate moments of teaching and learning, a direct transfer of knowledge that was essential for the group's survival. Every tool made, every basket woven, carried with it the legacy of countless generations. This social world also provided emotional support. Life was fragile. Danger was a constant companion. The loss of a loved one to a predator, an accident, or illness was a devastating blow. But no one grieved alone. The community would come together, sharing the sorrow, offering comfort, and performing rituals to honor the departed. This shared emotional experience strengthened their bonds, reminding them that they were all part of something larger than themselves. Joy was also a communal affair. The birth of a new child was a celebration for the entire clan, a promise of continuity and a new link in the ancestral chain. These family units weren't static. They were interconnected. Groups would meet at certain times of the year, at sacred sites or resource-rich locations. This was an opportunity to trade goods, share information, and, crucially, find partners from outside their own group. These gatherings were festivals of life, strengthening the wider social fabric and ensuring genetic diversity. It was a prehistoric social network, built not on fiber optics, but on footpaths, shared stories, and family ties. So, when we imagine our deep past, let's look beyond the stereotype of the brutish caveman. Let's see the laughter of children playing by the fire. Let's see the quiet pride of a hunter sharing his kill. Let us hear the voice of a grandmother telling a story that has been told for 1,000 years. Let's see the intricate web of relationships, the love, the support, and the shared purpose that defined these first families. They were the original pioneers of society. They figured out the most fundamental human puzzle: how to live together. Their legacy isn't written in stone monuments or grand temples. It's written in our DNA. It's echoed in our own families, in our need for community, and in the comfort we find in sharing a meal and a story with the people we love. The world of the hunter-gatherer family is not a distant, alien past. It is the foundation upon which all of human civilization is built. It's the original home of our hearts. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into our shared human story. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Hello and welcome back. We've journeyed through a world dominated by giants, a planet teeming with mammoths, saber-toothed cats, and colossal ground sloths. We've seen how these magnificent creatures shaped their environments and how early humans navigated this wild, prehistoric landscape. But as we turn the page to this chapter, the tone shifts. We've reached the end of an era. This is the story of their disappearance, the story of the end of the giants. Imagine the world around 12,000 years ago. The great ice sheets that had held much of the northern hemisphere in their grip for millennia were in retreat. The planet was warming up, and fast. For the megafauna, The creatures over 100 pounds that had thrived in the cold, dry conditions of the Ice Age. This was a cataclysmic shift. The world they knew, the world they were perfectly adapted for, was vanishing before their very eyes. As the glaciers melted, they released enormous amounts of fresh water into the oceans, altering currents and weather patterns globally. The climate became warmer and wet. This might sound pleasant, but for the vast, cold grasslands, the so-called Mammoth steppe that stretched from Spain to Canada, was a death sentence. This immense biome, a super ecosystem that was the foundation of the megafauna's world, began to shrink. The dry, nutrient-rich grasses were replaced by damp, dense forests, and soggy tundra, which couldn't support the massive herds of grazers like mammoths, woolly rhinos, and giant bison. Think of it like their primary food source, a continent-sized buffet, suddenly closing down. The woolly mammoth, for example, was a specialized grass eater. Its massive molars were perfect for grinding tough, dry vegetation, but they were ill-suited for the softer leaves and shoots of the expanding forests. The same was true for many other large herbivores. Their food disappeared, and their habitat fragmented, breaking up into smaller and smaller pockets. This isolated populations, making them more vulnerable to disease and genetic decline. For these giants, the world was literally shrinking around them. So, it seems simple, right? The climate changed, their food went away, and they died out. This is one of the leading theories for the mass extinction event at the end of the Pleistocene epoch, often called the climate change hypothesis. It paints a picture of animals unable to adapt quickly enough to a rapidly changing world. It's a powerful and compelling explanation, supported by a wealth of geological and fossil evidence that shows a dramatic environmental overhaul right at the time the extinctions accelerated. It positions the megafauna as victims of a natural planetary cycle, a grand, impersonal force of nature. But is that the whole story? Because, as the environment was changing, a new and highly intelligent predator was also on the rise, spreading across the globe with unprecedented speed and efficiency. This brings us to the second major theory, one that's far more personal and, for many, more troubling. It's known as the overkill hypothesis, or more colloquially, the overhunting theory. This idea suggests that newly arriving big-game hunting humans were the primary drivers of the extinction. The timing is certainly suspicious. If you map the spread of modern humans into new territories like the Americas and Australia, you see a wave of megafauna extinctions following closely in their wake. In North America, the arrival of the Clovis people, known for their distinctive and deadly spear points, coincides almost perfectly with the disappearance of mammoths, mastodons, and dozens of other large species. Proponents of this theory argue that these giant animals, having evolved for millions of years without a predator as clever and technologically advanced as humans, were naive. They wouldn't have recognized humans as a significant threat until it was too late. Imagine a woolly mammoth, a creature that could stare down a saber-toothed cat, suddenly facing a small, seemingly weak biped. It wouldn't have instinctively fled. But that biped, armed with a well-aimed spear and working in a coordinated group, could bring down the largest of prey. The evidence for this is compelling. We find Clovis points embedded in mammoth skeletons. We find kill sites where multiple animals were butchered at once. This suggests a highly effective and systematic hunting strategy. By targeting these large animals, humans not only eliminated them directly, but also disrupted the entire ecosystem. Megafauna were a keystone species. Their grazing and browsing maintained the grasslands. When they were removed, the entire habitat could change, impacting countless other smaller species. The overkill hypothesis places the responsibility squarely on our ancestors' shoulders, casting a long shadow over our own history. So, we have two powerful, competing narratives. On one hand, a story of climate change, of animals caught in an environmental trap knot, of their making, en terre, a story of human innovation and predation, of our ancestors hunting these incredible beasts into oblivion. For decades, scientists have debated which one is correct. Was it the climate? Or was it us? The debate has been fierce, with evidence marshaled for both sides. One theory seems to absolve humanity, while the other serves as a prehistoric cautionary tale. But as with so many complex questions, the answer probably isn't a simple either-or. Increasingly, scientists are looking at a third option, a combination theory. This perspective suggests that it wasn't one single cause, but a devastating one-two punch. The megafauna were already in trouble. Climate change was putting them under immense stress. Their populations were shrinking, their habitats were fragmenting, and their food sources were becoming unreliable. They were weakened, vulnerable, and pushed to the brink. And then, humans arrived. Into this already precarious situation steps a new, hyper-efficient predator. Hunting pressure, even if it wasn't a relentless slaughter, could have been the final straw. For a population already stressed by a changing environment, the loss of even a few key individuals, their breeding female. A dominant male could have a disproportionately large impact. It could tip a struggling species over the edge from which it could never recover. This combination model, often called the Blitzkrieg hypothesis in a climatic context, sees both forces working in concert. Climate change loaded the gun, and human hunting pulled the trigger. This more nuanced view helps explain some of the inconsistencies in the other theories. For example, why did some megafauna, like the bison and muskox, survive while others didn't? Perhaps they were better adapted to the new environments or lived in more remote areas with less human pressure. Why did the extinctions happen so rapidly in some places, like North America, but take longer in others, like northern Siberia? It could be a unique combination of local climate effects and the timing of human arrival. Ultimately, the end of the giants was likely a complex tragedy with multiple causes. It was a story of a world in flux, a story of environmental collapse, and a story of the rise of a new global superpower. Homo sapiens, looking back at this period, isn't just an academic exercise. It's a profound reflection on our own species' impact on the planet. The echoes of this extinction event resonate even today. It reminds us that ecosystems are fragile and that even the largest and most powerful creatures can vanish forever. The empty landscapes they left behind are a silent testament to a world we can now only imagine, a world of giants that once was. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through our planet's deep past. The story of life is full of incredible highs and devastating lows, and understanding them helps us better understand our place in the world today. If you enjoyed this, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the history of our world. We'll see you next time. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our journey through deep history. Last time, we explored the world of the Clovis people, masters of the hunt, who roamed a land teeming with giant beasts. But what happens when those giants disappear? That's the story we're diving into today. A story of resilience, innovation, and adaptation in the face of monumental change. Imagine the world at the end of the last ice age, around 11,000 years ago. The great glaciers are retreating, the climate is warming, and the landscape is transforming. But this change comes at a cost. The massive animals that defined the Earth, mammoths, mastodons, and giant sloths are vanishing. For the Paleo-Indians, whose culture was built around hunting these megafauna, this wasn't just a change. It was an existential crisis. The very foundation of their survival was crumbling beneath their feet. How do you feed your family when the grocery store, so to speak, has gone out of business? This is where the true genius of human adaptability shines. Faced with extinction, these early peoples didn't just give up. They observed, they learned, and they innovated. This period of transition, often called the late Paleo-Indian period, is one of the most fascinating chapters in the human story of North America. It's a testament to our species' ability to pivot when the world changes around us. Let's start with the most tangible evidence we have of this incredible shift: their tools. Archaeologists have a saying, "The stones speak." And in this case, they tell a powerful story of change. The iconic Clovis point, that large, beautifully crafted spear tip we discussed, slowly begins to disappear from the archaeological record. In its place, new and more refined types of projectile points emerge. One of the most famous successors to the Clovis point is the Folsom point. If you ever get the chance to see a Folsom point in a museum, take it. They are absolute works of art. Generally smaller and thinner than a Clovis point, They are distinguished by an enormous flute, or channel, that can run almost the entire length of the point. Creating this flute was an incredibly difficult feat of flint knapping. It required immense skill, as one wrong strike could shatter the entire piece. So why go to all that trouble? The answer lies in the prey. The Folsom point wasn't designed for a 10-ton mammoth. It was engineered for a much faster, more agile target. The ancient bison, an ancestor of the modern buffalo, but significantly larger, with massive horns. These bison were no easy targets. They were powerful and traveled in huge herds. The design of the Folsom point suggests a need for deep, rapid penetration to cause massive bleeding and bring down these formidable animals quickly. The long flute would have made the point lighter and possibly helped in hafting it securely to a spear shaft, creating a highly effective and lethal weapon system. The discovery of Folsom points was a landmark moment in American archaeology. In 1927, at a site in Folsom, New Mexico, archaeologists found one of these distinctive points lodged between the ribs of an extinct species of bison. This was the first time there was undeniable proof that humans had been in North America during the Ice Age, coexisting with and hunting animals that no longer walked to the earth. It completely rewrote the timeline of human presence on the continent. But Folsom wasn't the only innovation. As we move across the landscape and slightly forward in time, we encounter other new toolkits. In the southeastern and midwestern United States, another distinctive point appears. The Dalton point. Dalton points are interesting because they seem to be a multi-purpose tool. They have a different shape, often with a serrated, saw-like edge. While they certainly could have been used as spear tips, their design suggests they might also have been used as knives for butchering, cutting, and scraping. The rise of a tool like the Dalton point signals another major shift in lifestyle. The specialization of the Clovis mammoth hunters was giving way to a more generalized, flexible approach to survival. You couldn't rely on a single food source anymore. The world was becoming more diverse, and so were the diets of the people living in it. This brings us to the biggest change of all. With the megafauna gone, people had to broaden their horizons. They became what archaeologists call generalized foragers. This doesn't mean they stopped hunting. On the contrary, hunting remained crucial. But instead of focusing on one or two giant species, they hunted a wider variety of smaller game. Deer, elk, antelope, rabbits, turkeys, whatever the local environment provided became fair game. This required new knowledge, new hunting strategies, and a deep understanding of the habits of many different animals, not just one. But perhaps the most significant part of this new strategy was the gathering part of hunting and gathering. As the climate warmed, the plant world exploded with new diversity. The Paleo-Indians began to pay much closer attention to the rich bounty of plants, nuts, seeds, berries, and roots that surrounded them. This wasn't just casual snacking. It was a systematic and knowledgeable harvest of the landscape. Think about the sheer amount of information this requires. You need to know which plants are edible and which are poisonous. You need to know when they are ripe for the picking and where to find them. You need to know how to process them, how to grind nuts into flour, how to leach tannins out of acorns to make them edible, how to store seeds for the winter. This explosion of botanical knowledge was just as revolutionary as the invention of a new spear point. This shift had profound effects on how people lived. Instead of being highly mobile groups following mammoth herds over vast distances, people may have become more settled, at least seasonally. They began to operate out of base camps, moving through a familiar territory according to a seasonal round. They might be in the lowlands in the spring to gather early greens and fish, move to the uplands in the summer for berries and hunting, and then gather nuts in the fall to prepare for winter. Their lives became more rooted in a specific place, a home territory that they knew intimately. We see evidence of this in their tools as well. Besides new projectile points, we start to find more grinding stones, ore manos and matates, used for processing plant foods. We find tools like adzes and gouges for woodworking, suggesting they were building more substantial shelters. We see an increase in fishing gear, like bone hooks and possibly nets. Their entire toolkit was diversifying to meet the needs of a more varied and complex lifestyle. So, the disappearance of the megafauna wasn't the end of the story for the first Americans. It was the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one. It forced them to become more flexible, more knowledgeable, and more deeply connected to the nuances of their local environments. This period of adaptation, marked by innovations like the Folsom and Dalton points, set the stage for the incredible diversity of cultures that would later flourish across North America. A story we'll continue to explore in our next video. This transition teaches us a powerful lesson about our own history. The world is always changing, sometimes in dramatic and unpredictable ways. The key to survival, then as now, is not just strength, but adaptability and the willingness to learn and innovate. The legacy of these ancient people is not just in the stones they left behind, but in the enduring spirit of human resilience they represent. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through human history. Today, in Chapter 15, we're talking about echoes in stone, about the timeless messages left behind by our most distant ancestors. Imagine this. You're an archaeologist, carefully brushing away layers of soil that have been untouched for thousands, even tens of thousands of years. The air is still, the sun is warm on your back, and then your brush reveals something. It's not just a rock. It's shaped. It has a purpose. It's a stone point, perfectly napped, with edges still sharp enough to tell a story. This isn't a story you read in a book. It's a story you can hold in your hand. This simple piece of flint or chert was once the pinnacle of technology. It was the difference between a successful hunt and starvation. Think about the person who made it. Their hands, just like ours, worked this stone with incredible skill, a skill passed down through generations. They knew exactly where to strike, exactly how much force to use, to create a tool that could bring down a creature many times their size. This wasn't just a tool. It was a testament to human ingenuity, our ability to adapt and to thrive in a world filled with immense challenges. And the story gets even more vivid. Not far from where you found the stone point, you uncover something else. It's massive, curved, and unmistakably a piece of a mammoth tusk or a giant femur. As you clean it, you notice something incredible. Fine, parallel lines etched into the bone's surface. These aren't random scratches from tumbling through the earth. These are cut marks, made by a stone tool, just like the one you're holding. This is the moment the past becomes undeniably present. You're looking at the direct evidence of a hunt, a butchering, a meal shared by a family or a clan over 10,000 years ago. These marks are a silent conversation across millennia. They tell us what these ancient people ate, how they prepared their food, and how they used every part of the animal. The location of the cuts can reveal how they expertly dismembered the carcass, targeting the most nutritious parts. It's forensic science, but for a world before written records. Each mark is a data point, a clue that helps us reconstruct the lives of people we will never meet, but whose legacy is written in stone and bone. It's a powerful reminder that we are a part of a continuous human story, one that began long, long ago. When archaeologists find these artifacts together, it's called an in situ discovery. That means in its original place, a stone point lying next to a mammoth bone with cut marks is a frozen moment in time. It's a prehistoric crime scene, except the only crime was survival. We can almost picture the scene. A small group of hunters, their breath misting in the cold Ice Age air, working together to process their monumental kill. The sounds of their stone tools scraping against bone, the smell of the fire they would soon build, the feeling of communal triumph and relief. These aren't just objects. They are props from a play that ended thousands of years ago, and we are the privileged audience who gets to piece together the script. Let's talk about the stones themselves. The creation of a single spear point, often called a Clovis point in North America, was an art form. The napper had to have an intimate understanding of the stone's properties. They would strike a large core stone with a hammerstone, breaking off a large, flat piece called a flake. Then, using a softer tool, like an antler billet, they would meticulously chip away at the edges, shaping the point and creating its deadly sharpness. The final and most difficult step was often creating a flute, a long channel running up the base of the point. This flute was a brilliant innovation, allowing the point to be securely hafted or attached to a wooden spear shaft. Think about the focus and patience required. One wrong move, and the entire point could shatter, wasting hours of work and precious material. Every successful point was a small victory, a piece of survival insurance. When we find these points, sometimes hundreds of miles from their stone source quarry, it tells us about ancient trade networks, migration routes, and the vast distances our ancestors traveled. These small stones map out a forgotten human geography, a world without borders, navigated by people who understood the land in a way we can now only imagine. And what about the mammoths? These magnificent, shaggy giants were the ultimate prize. A single mammoth could feed a group for weeks. Its hide could be used for shelter and clothing, its bones and tusks for tools, structures, and even art. Finding a kill site is like finding a prehistoric supermarket. Archaeologists have found sites with the remains of multiple mammoths, suggesting coordinated, large-scale hunts. How did they do it? How did these relatively small humans, armed only with stone-tipped spears, bring down a creature that could weigh over 10 tons? It speaks to their intelligence and cooperation. They likely used the landscape to their advantage, trapping animals and bugs or driving them off cliffs. They would have worked as a team, a finely tuned unit where every member knew their role. The hunt was dangerous, and surely many were injured or worse. But the reward was the continuation of their people. The cut marks on the bones are the final chapter of that hunt. They are the signature of success, the proof that human ingenuity and teamwork could overcome even the most colossal challenges. It's humbling, isn't it? To hold a tool that someone crafted 15,000 years ago, or to trace a cut mark on a bone from an animal that has long since vanished from the earth. These discoveries connect us to our shared human heritage in a way that nothing else can. They collapse time, allowing us to feel a direct link to the people who walked this planet so long before us. They weren't primitive or simple. They were intelligent, resourceful, and resilient. They were parents, children, artists, and innovators. They were us. The work of archaeology is a patient, careful process of listening to these echoes in the stone. It's about giving a voice to the silent and painting a picture of a world that exists now only in these fragments. Every artifact, no matter how small, is a word in a language we are still learning to read. It's a story of survival, of innovation, and of the unshakable human spirit. And it's a story that is still being uncovered, one discovery at a time, right beneath our feet. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration into our deep past. The story of humanity is the greatest story ever told, and we've still got so much to uncover. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you next time. Have you ever wondered how we know so much about our Stone Age ancestors? We picture them hunting mammoths and gathering berries. But how can we be sure? It's not like they left behind diaries or shopping lists. The truth is, we have a team of high-tech detectives on the case, and they're using incredible science to piece together the story of our past. Welcome to our journey into the science of the hunt. Imagine holding a tiny fragment of bone, thousands of years old. What can it tell you? Well, thanks to a technique called carbon dating, we can determine its age with remarkable accuracy. Every living thing, including you, me, and that ancient bison, absorbs carbon from the environment. A small part of that is a radioactive version called carbon. When an organism dies, it stops taking in new carbon, and the carbon-14 it already has starts to decay at a predictable rate. By measuring how much is left, scientists can calculate when that animal or plant died. It's like a stopwatch that starts ticking at the moment of death, giving us a precise timeline for the past. But knowing asterisk when asterisk they lived is just the beginning. We also want to know asterisk. What asterisk they ate. This is where isotope analysis comes in. Think of it as a chemical signature that gets recorded in your bones and teeth. The saying, "you are what you eat," is literally true. By analyzing elements like nitrogen and strontium in ancient human remains, scientists can reconstruct their diet. Higher levels of certain nitrogen isotopes, for example, 0.2, a diet rich in meat, while different strontium levels can even tell us if they were eating plants from a specific valley or fish from a particular river. It's a prehistoric menu, written in the language of chemistry. This science doesn't just reveal dinner plans. It also uncovers epic journeys. Isotope analysis can act like a geological GPS. Different regions have unique isotopic signatures in their soil and water. When people or animals consumed food and water from a certain area, that signature became part of their body. by comparing the isotopes in a person's teeth which form in childhood to those in their bones. Change throughout life. We can tell if someone grew up in one place and moved somewhere else later on. This has allowed us to map the incredible migrations of our ancestors across continents, following the herds and exploring new lands. Now, let's talk about the ultimate biological blueprint, DNA. Ancient DNA analysis has revolutionized our understanding of the past. Scientists can now extract and sequence DNA from fossils that are tens of thousands of years old. This genetic code is like a detailed family tree, revealing how different groups of ancient humans were related to each other. We can see how populations mixed, migrated, and diverged. For example, DNA analysis showed that early modern humans interbred with Neanderthals, a discovery that reshaped our understanding of human evolution. It's like finding lost chapters of our family history. DNA also helps us understand social structures. By analyzing the genetic material from individuals buried together in a single grave, archaeologists can determine their relationships. Were they parents and children, siblings, or were they an unrelated group who died at the same time? This information provides invaluable clues about family units, social organization, and even burial practices. We can start to see not just a collection of individuals, but a community. Let's put it all together. Imagine an archaeological site. Carbon dating tells us the settlement was occupied 20,000 years ago. Isotope analysis of human bones reveals a diet heavy in reindeer and salmon. The isotopes in their teeth, however, match a region 200 miles to the north, telling us they migrated. Meanwhile, DNA from the remains shows that the people buried there were part of a close-knit, extended family. Suddenly, a few scattered bones and artifacts transform into a vivid story. A family of mobile hunters who followed the reindeer herd south for the winter. This isn't just about satisfying our curiosity. Understanding how our ancestors adapted to changing climates and environments gives us valuable perspective on the challenges we face today. They were master survivors, constantly innovating and moving to thrive in a world that was always in flux. The tools they used weren't just stone and bone. Their greatest tools were cooperation, resilience, and an intimate knowledge of their world. The science is constantly evolving. New techniques are emerging that allow us to extract even more information from tinier and older samples. We can now analyze the DNA of the bacteria in ancient plaque on teeth to learn more about diet and health. We can study microscopic proteins left on stone tools to identify exactly which animal species they were used to butcher. Each discovery adds another piece to the grand puzzle of our shared human story. So, the next time you see a depiction of a Stone Age hunter, remember that it's not just guesswork. It's a picture built from a mountain of scientific evidence. Through carbon dating, isotope studies, and DNA analysis, we are listening to the echoes of the past, decoding the silent stories written in bone and stone. We are, in essence, learning to read the history of humanity itself. Thank you so much for joining us on this scientific journey back in time. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, in Chapter 17, we delve into the very essence of human endurance, the art of survival. Let's travel back tens of thousands of years, to a world both beautiful and brutal, a world that demanded everything from our ancestors just to see the next sunrise. Imagine the biting cold, a relentless wind that seeps into your very bones. Picture the gnawing hunger, a constant companion that sharpens the senses and fuels a desperate search for sustenance. See the shadows that dance at the edge of the firelight, where unseen dangers lurk. This was their reality, not for a day, not for a week, but for a lifetime. It's easy to think of this era as primitive, as a grim struggle for mere existence. But if we look closer, we find something truly extraordinary. We find not just survival, but resilience. Not just hardship, but profound intelligence. This wasn't a story of brute force. It was a story of a brilliant mind at work. Every day was a test, a complex puzzle to be solved. Where will the herds migrate? Which plants are safe to eat, and which hold hidden medicine? How can we predict the changing seasons? Answering these questions required a deep, intimate knowledge of the natural world, passed down through generations. They were the original scientists, the first ecologists. Their laboratory, the vast, untamed wilderness. Their observations were their data, and their survival was the ultimate validation of their hypotheses. Think about the sheer ingenuity required. They didn't just find shelter, they created it. They learned to read the landscape, identifying the most defensible caves or the best locations to build huts from mammoth bones, animal hides, and earth. These weren't just crude hovels. They were homes, positioned to protect from the wind and predators, designed to capture the warmth of the fire. They harnessed the most powerful and terrifying element in nature, fear, and made it their servant. Fire provided not just warmth and light, but a way to cook food, making it safer and more nutritious. It was a weapon against the night's predators and a focal point for the community, a place to share stories, plan the next day, and strengthen social bonds. And what about their tools? We often see flint knapping as a simple act of hitting one rock with another, but it was an art form. A science of fracture mechanics honed over millennia. A skilled toolmaker could look at a piece of flint and see the finished blade within. They understood the precise angle and force needed for each strike, peeling away flakes to reveal a perfectly formed spearhead, a sharp scraper, or a delicate burin for engraving. Each tool was a masterpiece of function and efficiency. There's a harmony in their toolkits, a sense of purpose where every piece was designed for a specific task. From butchering a massive bison to stitching a delicate garment with a fine bone needle. This wasn't just about making sharp rocks. It was about creating extensions of the human hand and mind, tools that allowed them to master their environment. Look at a hand axe from this period. Feel its weight, its balance. Notice how it fits perfectly into your palm. This isn't an accident. It was ergonomically designed, crafted by someone who understood both the material and the body that would wield it. There's an inherent beauty in this marriage of form and function. It speaks of a mind that didn't just seek to survive, but to do so with grace and efficiency. They were problem solvers of the highest order. When they needed to bring down a mammoth, they didn't just charge in. They coordinated, communicated, and used their knowledge of the animal's behavior and the terrain to their advantage, perhaps driving it into a bog or off a cliff. Each hunt was a symphony of strategy, courage, and cooperation. But perhaps the most profound testament to their spirit is that even amidst this constant struggle, they sought and created beauty. They took time away from the hunt, away from tool-making, away from the fight against the cold, to create art in the deep, silent darkness of caves. They painted breathtaking murals of the animals that dominated their world. Bison, horses, lions, and mammoths. Using pigments made from ochre and charcoal, they brought these animals to life with a sense of movement and realism that is still stunning today. Why? Why expend precious energy and resources on this? Because they were not just surviving, they were living. They had a complex inner world, a spiritual life, a need to express their place in the cosmos. These paintings weren't just decoration. They were stories, rituals, perhaps a way of connecting with the spiritual essence of the world around them. They also carved intricate figures from bone, ivory, and stone. The famous Venus figurines, with their exaggerated features, hinted a deep reverence for fertility and the miracle of life. Tiny, detailed carvings of animals on spear throwers show that even their most practical tools were adorned with beauty. They were telling us something across the vast expanse of time. We were here. We felt wonder. We saw our beauty. We had hope. So, when we think of our ancient ancestors, let's look beyond the stereotype of the brutish caveman. Let's see them for who they truly were. Pioneers of the human spirit. They were innovators who turned stone into art, danger into knowledge, and a daily struggle into a testament of resilience. They faced a world of cold and hunger, yet they filled it with the warmth of community, the light of ingenuity, and the vibrant colors of their imagination. They didn't just survive. They laid the very foundations of human culture, proving that even in the harshest of conditions, the human drive to learn, to create, and to thrive is unbreakable. The art of survival was, in fact, the art of being human. 4 millennia stories have been the lifeblood of cultures, passed down through generations, shaping who we are. But what if some of these stories hold memories far older than we can imagine? What if woven into the fabric of indigenous oral traditions, are whispers from the Ice Age. Welcome, as we explore the fascinating connection between ancient myths and the colossal creatures that once roamed this land. The Mammoths. Imagine North America, 13,000 years ago. A world of vast ice sheets, towering forests, and giants. This was the world of the first peoples, a world they shared with the woolly mammoth. For a long time, we've separated the scientific story of megafauna from the cultural stories of indigenous peoples. One was seen as hard fact, the other as myth. But what if that separation is a mistake? What if these oral traditions are not just myths, but a form of history, a living archive of deep memory? Let's travel to the Pacific Northwest. The Yakama Nation tells stories of the cold weather elephants. These tales describe giant, shaggy-haired beasts with long, curved teeth that their ancestors hunted. The descriptions are so vivid, so precise, they align almost perfectly with the fossil record of the Columbian mammoth. Is it just a coincidence? Or is it a memory, carefully preserved and passed down through hundreds of generations? Similarly, among the Cascadena people in the Yukon, there are stories of giant, monstrous beavers. For a long time, these were just stories. Then, paleontologists unearthed the fossils of Asterisk. Costeroids asterisk, the giant beaver of the Pleistocene, a creature the size of a black bear. Again, the oral tradition preceded the scientific discovery. The stories weren't just flights of fancy. They were records of a world that once was. These aren't isolated examples. Across the continent, from the Great Lakes to the Great Plains, we find echoes of these ancient megafauna. In the stories of different nations, the Innu people speak of the Cachito husk, a large, hair-covered monster. The Naskopi have tales of a giant, elephant-like creature. Each story is unique, colored by the landscape and language of its people, yet they share a common, ghostly image of these magnificent beasts. So, how could these memories survive for so long? The answer lies in the power and sophistication of oral tradition. These aren't just simple bedtime stories. They are complex systems of knowledge transfer, meticulously maintained. Storytellers are trained from a young age, and the stories are often told in specific contexts, during specific ceremonies, ensuring their accuracy and preservation. They are a library of the mind, where every word, every detail, is a sacred trust. To dismiss these traditions as mere folklore is to ignore a vital source of historical information. It also continues a long and damaging history of devaluing indigenous knowledge. When we truly listen to these voices, we begin to see a richer, more complete picture of the past. It's a past where science and story are not at odds, but are two sides of the same coin, each one illuminating the other. Consider the emotional weight of these stories. They aren't just zoological reports. They're tales of courage, of survival, of a deep spiritual connection to the land and its creatures. They speak of a time when humans were not separate from nature, but an integral part of it. Hunting a mammoth wasn't just about food. It was a profound act that required immense skill, community cooperation, and a deep respect for the animal's spirit. These stories carry the ethical and spiritual lessons learned from those encounters. This perspective is revolutionary. It challenges us to rethink our entire concept of history. History isn't just what's written down in books. It lives in the spoken word, in songs, in ceremonies. It lives in the voices of indigenous elders today, who are the modern-day keepers of this ancient flame. When a Yakama elder shares the story of the cold weather elephant, they're not just repeating a myth. They are connecting us directly to their ancestors who stood in the shadow of a living, breathing mammoth. This bridge between past and present is incredibly powerful. It reminds us that indigenous cultures are not relics of the past. They are living, breathing, and evolving. The same resilience that allowed their ancestors to survive the Ice Age is the same resilience they show today in the face of modern challenges. Their stories are a testament to their endurance and their profound, unbroken connection to this land. Listening to these traditions also carries a responsibility. It's not about appropriating stories for our own entertainment. It's about engaging with them respectfully, understanding their context, and acknowledging the people who have carried them for so long. It means supporting indigenous storytellers, language revitalization programs, and cultural preservation efforts. It means recognizing indigenous peoples as the original scientists and historians of this continent. So, the next time you see a mammoth skeleton in a museum, I want you to remember this. That skeleton is not just a collection of ancient bones. It's a character in a story that is still being told. It's a memory that has survived for over 10,000 years, carried forward not on stone tablets, but on the breath of storytellers. The Ice Age may be over, but its echoes are all around us. If we only have the wisdom to listen. Let's start listening. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the deep past. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we're bringing our story full circle, right into the present day, to uncover the legacies buried right beneath our feet. We've traveled thousands of years into the past, exploring the lives of the first Americans, the Paleo-Indians, and the remarkable Clovis people. But their story isn't just confined to ancient history books. It's a living narrative, constantly being unearthed from the soil of our modern world. Imagine this. You're walking across a farmer's field in the American Midwest, or perhaps kayaking along a river in the Southeast. You might be just inches away from a piece of history that could rewrite everything we know about the earliest inhabitants of this continent. It sounds like something out of a movie, right? But for archaeologists, this is their everyday reality. Countless Paleo-Indian and Clovis sites remain hidden, entombed under layers of farmland, buried by centuries of river silt, or even resting quietly at the bottom of newly formed lakes. These aren't grand pyramids or stone cities. They're often subtle, ephemeral campsites, butcher sites, and tool-making workshops. Places where a family gathered around a fire 13,000 years ago, or where a hunter expertly chipped away at a piece of chert to create a perfect spear point. These are the fragile footprints of the first Americans. Think about the gold site in Texas, an archaeological wonderland that was essentially hidden in plain sight for decades. For years, people knew it as a place to find arrowheads. But when professional archaeologists began a systematic excavation, they uncovered one of the most extensive Clovis sites ever found, a true metropolis of its time. It revealed that these early peoples weren't just nomadic hunters, but had long-term settlements, complex social structures, and an incredible mastery of their environment. The story of Galt was waiting patiently for someone to dig a little deeper. And that's the crucial part. The dig. Archaeology is a painstaking, meticulous process. It's not about treasure hunting, it's about storytelling. Every fleck of charcoal, every animal bone, every fragment of a stone tool is a word in a sentence of a long-lost language. When archaeologists excavate a site, they are like detectives at a crime scene, preserving the context of every single find. Where an artifact is found in relation to other objects and to the layers of soil is just as important as the artifact itself. This context is what allows them to piece together the activities that took place there thousands of years ago. For instance, at the Pageladson site in Florida, archaeologists had to dive into the murky waters of the Asilla River. What they found there, submerged and preserved in the riverbed, was astounding. Butchered mastodon bones alongside stone tools, dating back 14,500 years. This discovery pushed back the timeline of human presence in the Americas and proved that people were here before the Clovis culture. It was a game changer, and it was found at the bottom of a river, a place most of us would never think to look for human history. These discoveries often happen by accident. A farmer plowing a field might turn up an unusual stone point. Construction crews digging the foundation for a new building might stumble upon ancient animal bones. This is where the partnership between scientists and the public becomes so vital. When people report these finds, they become the first link in a chain of discovery that can lead to incredible new knowledge. The challenges, however, are immense. Urban sprawl, deep plowing for agriculture, and natural erosion constantly threaten these delicate sites. Once a site is disturbed without proper archaeological documentation, its story is lost forever. It's like tearing pages out of the only existing copy of a book. The information is gone, and we can never get it back. That's why the work of preservation organizations and the legal protections afforded to archaeological sites are so important. They are the guardians of this shared heritage. Moreover, the process of excavation itself is a form of controlled destruction. Once a layer of soil is removed, it can't be put back. This is why modern archaeology is so focused on technology. Ground-penetrating radar, magnetometry, and LiDAR allow researchers to see beneath the surface without ever lifting a shovel. They can map out potential features, identify areas of interest, and make their excavations far more targeted and efficient, preserving as much of the site as possible for future generations of scientists who will have even more advanced technologies. The legacy beneath our feet is also a deeply personal one for modern indigenous communities. These archaeological sites are not just scientific curiosities. They are the tangible links to their ancestors. They are sacred places, burial grounds, and the homes of the people from whom they are descended. Today, there is a growing and essential collaboration between archaeologists and indigenous groups. This partnership ensures that the excavation and interpretation of these sites are done respectfully and that the narratives being told are enriched by traditional knowledge and oral histories passed down through generations. It is a shift from studying a people to working with a people to understand their own past. This collaboration corrects a long history of science that often excluded or marginalized Native American voices. It recognizes that the stories held within the land are complemented by the stories held within the communities. By weaving these two threads of knowledge, together scientific data and traditional wisdom, we arrive at a much richer, more complete, and more human understanding of the past. So, what mysteries still wait to be solved? Archaeologists are still searching for the Holy Grail, a definitive pre-Clovis site in an undisputed context that could once and for all settle the debate on when people first arrived. They are looking for more evidence of how these early peoples adapted to the dramatic climate change at the end of the Ice Age. Did they witness the extinction of the megafauna? And what role, if any, did they play in it? They are searching for more perishable artifacts, bits of woven fiber, wooden tools, or clothing that rarely survive, but offer an intimate glimpse into daily life. Every year, new discoveries are made that challenge our assumptions. A child's footprint preserved in ancient mud, the chemical residue of plants on a cooking stone, the DNA extracted from a single strand of hair. These are the clues that are pushing the boundaries of our knowledge. They are transforming our picture of the first Americans from shadowy figures of a distant past into real, complex, and resilient people who laid the foundations for the human story on these continents. The legacy beneath our feet is not just a story of the past. It's a constant source of discovery in the present and a profound responsibility for the future. It's a reminder that history is not static. It's alive. It's all around us. And sometimes, it's just waiting for a careful hand to brush away the dirt and let its story be told once more. The search continues. And with every new find, the first chapter of America's human history becomes a little clearer, a little more detailed, and a lot more fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey. The story of humanity is vast, and we've only just scratched the surface. We've traveled back in time, across vast frozen landscapes, and stood shoulder to shoulder with our ancestors as they faced a world of ice and giants. We've marveled at their ingenuity, their art, and their sheer will to survive. Now, as our journey through the Ice Age comes to a close, it's easy to feel a sense of loss for this vanished world. The mammoths no longer thunder across the steppes, and the great glaciers have retreated, leaving a transformed planet in their wake. But is that world truly gone, or does it simply speak to us in quieter tones, in whispers carried on the wind? Look closely. The world we inhabit today was carved and shaped by the forces of the Pleistocene, the very ground beneath our feet, the rolling hills, the deep valleys, and the sprawling lakes. Many of these are the direct result of colossal ice sheets advancing and retreating. They scraped the land bare in some places and deposited rich, fertile soil in others. The paths of our modern rivers often follow ancient meltwater channels. Our world is a physical testament, a grand sculpture left behind by the Ice Age. When you hike through a national park or simply look out at the landscape, you are witnessing the legacy of that immense power. The ice may be gone, but its handiwork is everywhere. And what about the life that teemed in that era? While the megafauna like the woolly rhino and the saber-toothed cat have disappeared, their story isn't over. Some of their smaller, more adaptable contemporaries are still with us. The reindeer that herds follow across the tundra, the hardy muskox, and the elusive wolf are living links to that ancient ecosystem. They are biological echoes, carrying genetic memories of a colder, wilder time. The study of their adaptations and survival provides invaluable clues about the challenges their ancestors faced and the resilience of life itself. They are not just animals, they are storytellers, whispering tales of a past that is not as distant as it seems. Of course, the most profound whispers come from our own species. Think of the objects we've uncovered. A finely crafted spear point, lying dormant in the earth for 20,000 years. When an archaeologist brushes the soil away and lifts it into the light, it's more than just a stone tool. It's a connection. You can almost feel the presence of the person who made it, their skill, their focus, their reliance on this object for their family's next meal. This small piece of flint is a tangible piece of their life, a direct message from their world to ours. It speaks of intelligence, of planning, and of a deep understanding of their environment. It's a whisper that says, "We were here. We survived. We are you." This connection deepens when we venture into the painted caves. In the flickering torchlight of our imagination, we can see the artists at work. What drove them to crawl deep into the earth, to these sacred, silent spaces? Uncover the walls with breathtaking images of the animals they lived alongside. Was it ritual? Was it storytelling? Was it an attempt to capture the spirit of the hunt? We may never know for certain, but the power of their creation is undeniable. These paintings are not just historical records. They are the first great masterpieces of human imagination. They are the birth of art, the dawn of symbolism. They show us that from the very beginning, we have been a species that seeks meaning, that strives to understand our place in the cosmos, and to leave a mark that says, "We saw beauty in this world." That same creative spark, that same drive to explore and understand, is the very essence of what makes us human. It's the same impulse that led our ancestors to cross continents, and it's the impulse that now propels us to the stars. The curiosity that led an Ice Age hunter to wonder what lay beyond. The next glacier is the same curiosity that drives a scientist to peer through a telescope or a microscope today. The spirit of discovery is perhaps the most enduring legacy of the Ice Age. It's a fire that was lit in the hearths of our ancient kin and has been passed down, generation to generation, burning brighter with each passing millennium. We are the inheritors of their world. We carry their DNA in our bodies and their spirit of survival in our hearts. Every time we innovate, every time we create, every time we face a challenge with courage and ingenuity, we are honoring their legacy. The Ice Age wasn't just a period of hardship. It was the crucible in which the human spirit was forged. It taught us to be adaptable, to cooperate, to look to the future, and to dream. It shaped us into the resilient, curious, and creative beings we are today. The great ice sheets have melted, and the mammoths have fallen silent. But the whispers from the Ice Age are all around us, and within us. They are in the stones, in the genes of the animals that still roam, and most importantly, in the unquenchable fire of the human imagination. The story of the Ice Age is not a closed chapter of a distant past. It is the foundational story of humanity, a tale of survival and discovery that continues to unfold with every new generation. It is our story. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey back in time. It's been a privilege to explore this lost world with you. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps us continue to tell these amazing stories. We've got so much more to discover together. Until next time, keep listening for the whispers of the past.